Welcome back to your Sweet Cravings Called, and they're ready to spill the tea. Here's day 3. So let's recap real quick. Day 1 was really about sitting with the question of, are you noticing your cravings? Are you noticing this about yourself? Are you paying attention? And the second part of that was asking the question of, where am I not allowing sweetness or joy into my life outside of the meal? Outside of that, where am I missing the sweetness? Okay, that was day 1. Day 2 was talking about how to incorporate feeding yourself more frequently, because a lot of women right now aren't able to get away with these super long overnight fasting windows or super long fasting windows throughout the day. Like, truly, I see it in my practice so much that it sounds so basic, it sounds so like duh, but not enough women are actually eating enough. And not only that, right? Not eating enough, but not eating enough nutrient density. We're not getting a lot of nutrition out when we are actually taking the time, when you do take the time to eat food, getting nutrition out of our food, right? So a lot of women are hypothyroid. A lot of women are sluggish with their liver. Their livers are overburdened, and that plays a factor in blood sugar. A lot of guts are imbalanced. We have a lot of imbalanced bacteria in our guts. A lot of people eating staple meals every single day, not switching it up because they're gung-ho on like that bro dieting phase. Hopefully that's not you anymore. You've stepped outside of that if you especially been following my account. But that kind of also limits the amount of bacteria and diversity that we have to break down different foods. So if you think about the whole phrase of like, if you don't use it, you lose it, the same thing applies with our gut bacteria. And because we know nothing is just ever in our gut, it is multi-system. It is also multi-dimensional, is that disrupts your brain processing, that disrupts your energy, that disrupts your nervous system states. So there is a whole lot going on. Sorry, my kitty's meowing and it's so cute. I have to pause this. Okay, I don't know where she went. She's crying and it's so cute. But there's a whole lot going on that influences your blood sugar. So day 3 today, we've talked about how to incorporate feeding yourself more frequently. We've talked about sitting with the question, where am I missing out on the sweetness in my life? And so today is going to be really a message around preparing your plate and really asking ourselves, if we have a blood sugar problem, right? If our sweet cravings are really a call for nutrition and nourishment more frequently, how do we go about doing that? So this whole thing is so bio-individual. I want you to know that. Your gut influences things, your thyroid, your nervous system states. This is so multidimensional that these things I'm sharing with you are just touching points. And to go a lot deeper into this, and specifically for you, is the work that I do in my practice. So if you're here, if you've been catching up with this, this is your sign. I literally have spaces open for one-on-one right now, and I know this work is going to change so many things for you, like it has for my clients. So I literally am jumping inside of my body right now about how this can help you, and I can't wait to have that for you. So respond to me, reach out to me if you're watching this and you're like, I want in on this juice because I need some help. I'm your girl. Okay, so back into this is, let's talk about a blood sugar issue. If we're literally talking about how to receive more sugar in our cells, how to uptake, aren't we talking about cellular health? Aren't we talking about the very cells of your body and its ability to receive sugar, and what could be in the way of that, right? That's why merely carbs don't work for me. I can't digest carbs well. The whole blood sugar problem or sweet craving problem and just removing carbs or removing sugars isn't really addressing how your body is able to process it better. It's literally a Band-Aid thing, right? It's almost like the same thing as a food allergy test. Oh, I have intolerances to these foods, or I have this. You're not addressing any bit of how your body can be better supported and process these things. Just removing something merely doesn't fix how to get your body working better with that and having a better internal environment to accept that, right? So that's what this is going to be about today. So if we're talking about a cellular issue, we're talking about literally glucose getting into your cells. Why is this whole blood sugar conversation? Why is this whole your sweet cravings the problem with that? Why is nobody talking about your cellular health? Hi, welcome to my world. If you're new here, this is what I talk about all the time is minerals and nourishment, right? We can't ask our bodies to receive glucose into the cells if we have a lack of minerals responsible for that happening. Depletion of potassium, depletion of magnesium, those are both minerals inside the cell that allow your cells to uptake what is coming into the cell. Lack of the inside of the cell of nutrition and minerals prevents excess on the outside, which will continue to build up a border of your body being able to receive the goodness. Okay? Think about that for a second. Insulin is like a mirror to potassium. Potassium is inside the cell. Glucose is like a mirror to sodium. Sodium's outside the cell. There has to be a mineral balance between the two to allow glucose to get into your cell, which means we gotta talk about cellular health, replenishing your minerals, and nourishment, okay? So let's talk about deeper of what anchors in sugars, okay? Carbs, fats, and proteins, they gotta go together. They gotta go together. If you've ever heard, I know some people probably follow the glucose goddess or whatever. She talks a lot about not having naked carbs, and that's such a good, simplistic, a very good view of like how to better support my sugar cravings is to stabilize the sugars that I'm eating, to really anchor those in. And how you anchor those in is with protein, a protein rich, and even a fat rich meal. So when you are eating your meals, can you check off that like, okay, I'm having some sort of starchy carb. That starchy carb is paired with a fat to really anchor it in and allow for satiation, or a very nourishing protein source or meat source to anchor that in as well. And I want to give this example to you because some people are like removing sugars, they're removing carbs, and they fill up their plates with just a bunch of vegetables. Now, the problem with that is when you remove protein from your diet, when you take that out, you're also getting rid of the bacteria to digest carbs and proteins and fats better. So when you're filling up your plate with a bunch of vegetables, those are really hard to digest. Those are really hard to digest. And if you look back ancestrally, if we just merely got by off of vegetables and seeds and nuts, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. Those are incredibly hard to digest, which is why we are not animals that just eat grass. We don't have the stomachs to digest that. We need protein. Protein actually helps us build up more stomach acid so that we can digest foods better, bring up our first line of defense better. Okay, so a lot of people that aren't processing carbs well, they're maybe getting bloated from carbs, or maybe they're having all these sweet cravings like, no, just gone by, I need to load up on vegetables. Vegetables give me fiber, that's good for me. Yeah, but they also include a lot of fibers that are hard to break down. And when you remove all those things, you also impact your body's ability to digest and absorb. So filling up your belly with a bunch of vegetables isn't the answer either, okay? We need to start working in how to better support my cells to receive and uptake this and work with it. And macronutrients like your carbs, like your proteins, like your fats working together, fats and protein anchor in our blood sugar. So you might find yourself, use this as a learning point, when you have a very carb naked meal without a very supported protein with it or without a very supporting fat source with it, tell me how you feel shortly after eating that meal. You might be reaching for coffee after the meal because you're like, energy's low. You might be reaching for another snack. If you're reaching for lots of snacks in between meals, that's probably a sign that your meals aren't well-rounded enough for you. They're not anchored in well enough for you. That's why you keep going for snacks. You're undernourishing the time that you are actually spending with eating a meal. So if you go back to yesterday's principle of feed yourself frequently, but also build up your meals. You might be somebody that actually needs 4-5 small meals a day. That's okay. What works for you? What do you need? Or you're somebody like myself, I typically do 3 big meals a day, and that works well for me. That carries me over. My energy is able to sustain from one meal to the next. So find what that is for you, but build up your meal to allow more nutrient density so you're not skipping things and having to reach for snacks to try to fill in the gaps when the snacks really aren't filling in the gaps. they're not. So fill up your meals, and the best way to do that is to add in more variety to your meals. I kind of call it crowding out or adding more in. How can I nourish myself better when I approach a meal? The three things immediately off the bat that I'm looking for is, where's my starchy carb, where's my fat source, where's my protein? And then it's like bonus round, like cherry on the top here, if I can add in some sort of vegetable and I can add some sort of fruit in, and even better if I have some sort of acid source and I have some salt in the meal. And the acid source can kind of go along the lines of fermentation. So can I apply that into my meal? Those are the things that I'm looking for when I'm building a meal, to help support better blood sugar, to help support satiation, to hold me longer, okay? That's very important. And I want to say something really quick about vegetables versus eating nourishing meals. Vegetables are, if you look at a lot of the vegetables, they're all really supportive of like cleansing properties within the body, helping liver detox, helping fiber, helping bile. Those are all supportive of cleansing the body. Not the same as like your carbs, your proteins, your fats. Like those meat sources, those fat sources, dairy sources, those are all very nourishing. And they're not just merely about cleansing, they're truly nourishing. They provide us glucose. We break down the fats into fatty acids that we need for cell structure and stability and strength, and also lubrication for the body, right? We also need the proteins. The proteins are our structure, they're our building blocks. We break those down into amino acids. And that is our foundation, right? If you look at our bones and our structure, what do we have onto our structure is breakdowns of those amino acids. So your carbs, your proteins, and your fats are really your nourishing, your nutrient density. And then think of your vegetable as like your cleansing. We can't get by on a diet merely just about cleansing, because if you've seen my content enough, we can't just be on a constant like forcing detox. We need nourishment, we need nutrients, we need nutrient density and minerals to actually help support those processes. So the foundations are nourishment, nutrient density, and feeding your body well and well enough. And I will die on a hill about this, that y'all need to be eating so much more frequently and more nutrient dense than you do. So she just yelled at me again. So let's recap this summary real quick. Are you actually anchoring in your carbohydrates? Are you actually anchoring in your blood sugar and your energy with some protein and fat sources? Are you building up your meal to allow stabilized energy to really satiate you from one meal to the next? Or are you having some gaps in your nutrition that you need to fill up a little bit more? Are you drinking and hydrating yourself between meals? Not with, and that's another conversation for another day, but having hydration versus drinking water, completely different. Are you actually hydrating in between meals? So recap of this is to build upon of the previous day of eating more frequently, feeding yourself frequently, but this is building up what we are eating and stabilizing our energy from one meal to the next without the crashes, without the reaching to snacks because the previous meal was incomplete. And my best hack for this, and I say this to my clients all the time, is make breakfast your bitch. Make breakfast your bitch. Make that be the one meal that hands down you are knocking it out of the park with a super nutrient dense, satiating meal versus skipping breakfast, merely getting by with it, grabbing something on the go, maybe just a pastry or something, or maybe just a smoothie. Like, no, I'm talking about really sitting with that meal, making breakfast your bitch, complementing it, bringing it up with those anchoring aspects, and making that meal your bitch, because I believe at my core that your breakfast sets the pace for the rest of your day. Your breakfast and how your body responds and digests your breakfast sets the tone for your blood sugar throughout the rest of the day. My clients will tell you if they skip breakfast, if they have a shitty breakfast that's on the go, their energy is also erratic the rest of the day. Their cravings are also up and down the rest of the day. They're also anxious most of that day. So it really does play a huge role. Make breakfast your bitch. That's what I'm ending on. That's where we're finishing here.